There are nights when the wind moves like a wounded animal, limping, snarling, unwilling to die. That night was one of them. I had been called to the old quarter by a message written in a hand I hadn't seen in years. It belonged to Orest Velichko, an antiquarian known for two things: his unsettling knowledge of cursed artifacts and his talent for disappearing for days at a time. But this time, he had been gone for 3 weeks. Too long even for him. The door to his shop, Velichko's Curios and Oddities, stood open like a mouth caught mid-gasp. A soft yellow lantern flickered somewhere inside, painting shaky silhouettes across the dust-choked windows. As I stepped in, the scent of old paper and something metallic, blood or rust, it was impossible to tell, washed over me. "Arrest?" My voice felt too loud in that suffocating silence. No answer. Instead, what greeted me was the painting, propped on an easel in the middle of the room. A Rembrandt, or at least a perfect imitation of one. Too perfect. The brushstrokes seemed to pulse, shifting under the lantern light as if they had a life of their own. And the figure in the painting? A sorrow-eyed man half swallowed by darkness, looked eerily familiar. My heart twisted. I knew that face, but from where? Before the memory could surface, the lantern behind me sputtered and died. Something moved in the dark. Slow, deliberate, and far too close. A whisper brushed my ear, colder than the night outside. "You finally returned." But when I spun around, there was no one. Only the painting, and the faint impression that the figure inside it now wore a thin, knowing smile. The lantern refused to reignite. No spark, no glow. Just the dry scrape of the flint wheel and the soft echo of my own breath. Darkness thickened around me, settling on my shoulders like damp ash. The painting, however, it needed no light to be seen. A faint luminescence seeped from it, cold, bluish, like moonlight on a corpse. Enough to sketch the outlines of the shop. Crooked shelves, relics draped in cobwebs, glass cases reflecting warped versions of my own figure. And there, at the center, the Rembrandt that wasn't. The sorrow-eyed man's smile had grown unmistakably wider. Too wide. A grin carved with a surgeon's patience. His gaze, steady, accusing, held mine, until something in my stomach knotted like a clenched fist. I stepped closer in spite of myself. Inside the brushstrokes, the background darkness seemed deeper now, and shifting objects began to take shape within it. The suggestion of bent trees, a crooked road, a lantern hanging from a familiar hand. My hand. A low vibration crawled through the floorboards, as if something massive had awakened beneath the shop. The shelves rattled, porcelain masks clinked their teeth together. A stuffed raven dropped from its perch with a soft, fleshy thud. I took a slow breath, but the air tasted wrong. Sweet, chemical, sedating. A voice scraped through the night, muffled by the pain. "Let me in, partner." Partner. Only one person ever called me that. I forced myself to look closer. A pale shape hovered beyond the fog, a gaunt face, eyes glowing as if lit from within, and the jaw wrong. Unhinged, as though pulled downward by invisible hooks. Yet the smile was unmistakable, even through the distortion of the glass. It was Marco, my old partner. Drowned, dead, buried. I stumbled back, knocking into a display case, Antique daggers clattered, one falling blade first into the floorboards just shy of my boot. The lights inside the shop flickered to life for a breathless heartbeat, and in that instant, the figure at the window vanished, gone, as if the fog had simply swallowed him whole. But the handprint remained, dark, dripping, fresh. The vibration beneath the floorboards returned, stronger now, shaking dust loose from the rafters. A single book tumbled from a high shelf and landed open beside the dropped envelope, its yellowed pages filled with sketches of faces, distorted, anguished faces. And there, in the center of the page, my own. New lines had been added to it in a trembling, frantic hand. On the margin, scratched deep enough to tear the paper, were 3 words. He's not dead. A cold breath swept across the back of my neck. Someone was standing behind me. I didn't turn at once. When a presence stands behind you in a room heavy with dead air, instinct whispers a single command: move slowly, or don't move at all. But the breath on my neck, it was wrong. It wasn't warm. It was cold as basement stone, cold enough to bead my skin with a sudden frost. I forced myself to pivot, inch by inch. Nothing. Only the dim corridor leading deeper into Orest's shop, toward the storage rooms where the antiques too dangerous or too damaged were kept. A corridor that hadn't been lit in years, yet now faintly glowed with a pale, trembling light, like bioluminescent molds smeared along the walls. A whisper drifted from the dark: "Follow or forget." The voice was neither Marco's nor Orest's. It was layered, several tones speaking at once, overlapping like multiple recordings played back out of sync. It scraped the inside of my skull like a rusted nail. The floorboards creaked behind me again. This time, not empty. The Rembrandt imitation, the painting, was no longer on the easel. It leaned against the wall now, much closer, its canvas bulging outward as if something inside it pressed against the fabric, eager to escape. The sorrow-eyed man's grin had vanished. His mouth hung open instead, a dark void swallowing the lower half of his face. Inside the painted darkness, faint movement stirred, like hands reaching up from deep water. A sudden metallic clang snapped me out of my paralysis. At the end of the corridor, the storage room door slammed shut, though no wind blew. The voice came again, closer now: "Follow or forget." I picked up the fallen envelope, my fingers trembling. Something hard and thin was inside. Maybe a key, maybe something else entirely. I didn't open it. Some truths need walls around them until the last possible moment. A second slam, this time much nearer, made the lantern hook beside me rattle. The shop seemed to inhale, and then exhale. All at once, the corridor lights died. Only a faint glow pulsed beneath the closed storage door, seeping out like the heartbeat of something trapped within. I stepped toward it. With each footfall, the scent of sedation grew stronger, as though I were walking back into the hospital room I had tried so hard to forget. Just before I reached the door, a whisper seeped through the crack beneath it, soft, trembling, unmistakably human. "Please, Detective, don't let it finish me." Orest. Alive and terrified. Orest's voice, thin, unraveling, pressed against the other side of the door like a dying moth against glass. For a moment, the shop fell utterly silent. Even the insects in the walls seemed to stop breathing. I pressed my palm to the wood. It was warm, too warm, as if the room behind it had a heartbeat. "Orest, what's in there with you?" A ragged inhale. Then, not what, who. Before I could answer, the
The doorknob twitched under my hand. A slow turn. Left, then right, then left again. Testing, teasing, as though whatever stood behind the door was learning how to use it. I stepped back. The envelope in my pocket seemed to grow heavier, pulsing in time with the throb of the door. Something inside it shifted, softly, like a small bone settling into place.
The lights along the corridor flickered once, twice, and then a thin line of darkness appeared across the door's center. At first, I thought it was a crack, until it blinked. An eye, horizontal, watching me from the wood itself, pupil dilating like a creature waking from a long sleep. The eye rolled, searching, focusing, fixing itself on me with a terrible intimacy. Orest's muffled whimper rose beyond the door. "It sees you. Run, please, run!" But his plea barely reached me, swallowed by the low, rhythmic scraping that began behind the wood. The sound of fingernails, many of them, tracing spirals, circles, runes I could almost recognize from the sketches in Orest's forbidden journals. I touched the envelope again. A whisper spilled from within it, impossibly. "Open me, now." The eye and the door widened. The wood around it bulged outward, forming the shape of a face, stretched, distorted, as if someone were being pressed through from the other side. Someone who shouldn't be alive. The features sharpened, skin of polished oak taking on the impossible suggestion of wet flesh. I knew that face. Marco. Dead Marco. His wooden lips split open, and a voice, my voice, poured through. "You left me to drown." The door shuddered violently. Something massive slammed into it from the inside. Boom! Making dust rain from the rafters. Orest screamed, a raw, ragged animal sound. Boom! Another hit. The hinges groaned.
The corridor air thickened, vibrating like a plucked wire. I realized the door would give way in seconds, and whatever had taken Marco's face, whatever had learned to walk inside wood, it wanted me. My fingers tore into the envelope, ripping it open at last. A small metal key fell into my palm, but also a strip of paper, creased, stained, written in Orest's frantic scrawl. "The answers are downstairs, where you first woke up, where you forgot." Boom! A final strike split the door down the middle. Through the widening gap, a hand of twisted wood and pale skin reached for me, and behind it, Marco's stolen grin stretched too wide to belong to anything human. The wooden hand burst through the widening crack, jagged splinters jutting like exposed ribs. Its fingers writhed, bending in ways no joint should allow, searching blindly for flesh, for me. Marco's voice gurgled behind it, thick and wet, as though coming from a throat filled with river mud. "Come back, partner. We're not finished." I staggered backward, nearly tripping over a heap of cracked porcelain masks. The corridor tilted, swaying like the deck of a sinking ship. The key in my palm burned with cold, an impossible contradiction that sent a jolt up my arm. Downstairs, where I first woke up, where I forgot. The stairwell door was only a few steps behind me, buried in shadow. The grotesque hand lunged. I dove aside. It scraped across the wall, carving deep furrows, gouging old paint and older secrets. The corridor lights exploded in a shower of dying sparks. Darkness swallowed everything except the pale pulse beneath the ruined storage door. Orest's voice burst out in a choked wail. "Run, damn you! It remembers you!" That word, remembers, tore open something raw inside me. A memory not fully mine flashed behind my eyes. A hospital bed. A man screaming underwater. My hand letting go. No, no time. The creature behind the door shoved harder. The crack split wider, revealing Marco's face, or rather, a nightmarish imitation of it. Skin stretched too thin, eyes filmed with river light, lips pulled back in a grin that had nothing to do with joy. Every part of him said, "I didn't die alone, and you shouldn't either." I twisted the stairwell knob. It stuck. Swollen wood, rusted mechanism. Or maybe the shop itself didn't want me leaving. The creature's fingers brushed my coat, cold, slick, hungry. I slammed my shoulder into the stairwell door. It gave way with a splintering sigh. Stale air rose from below, damp, heavy, carrying the faint sting of hospital disinfectant. The smell hit me so hard my knees nearly buckled. Behind me, Marco's wooden body squeezed through the broken door, joints cracking like snapping branches. His mouth opened wider than any living mouth could. "We woke together, remember?" I didn't look back. I plunged down the narrow steps, nearly slipping, clutching the cold key so tightly it cut into my hand. The darkness grew thicker with each step, swallowing the shouts, the scraping, the monstrous breath above. But before the stairwell swallowed me whole, a final scream drifted down, Orest's voice shredding itself raw. "Don't let it touch you! If it touches you, it takes your face!" Then, a crash, a snapping, silence. I reached the bottom step just as the stairwell light died, plunging everything into a blackness so total it felt physical. My fingers traced the wall until they found a metal plate, a lock. The key in my palm twitched. Somewhere in that suffocating dark, feet not my own began to descend after me. Slow, patient, deliberate. One step at a time. The footsteps above me paused, one final step suspended in the dark before continuing their slow descent. Each one landed with a creak that wasn't wood, but something softer, wet. I slid the key into the lock on the metal plate. It resisted, as though something on the other side pressed back. Then, with a reluctant metallic groan, it turned. The door swung open into a darkness even deeper than the stairwells. A faint, rhythmic beeping drifted out. Slow, mechanical, familiar. My breath froze. Hospital monitors. The smell of disinfectant intensified, sharp enough to sting my eyes. My hand brushed the wall until it found a switch. I hesitated. Light could help me, or reveal something I wasn't ready to see. A dim, sickly green glow filled the room, emitted not by lamps but by a cluster of old medical machines pressed against one wall. Their screens sputtered with lines of static, interspersed with a single pulse that didn't quite match any human heartbeat. Drugged, and half a man. The sheets were freshly disturbed, and someone lay on them. I stepped closer. The figure beneath the sheets was frail, almost skeletal, a face half hidden in shadow. Tubes snaked from its arms into humming machines, a breathing mask fogged with each weak exhale. I reached for the mask, and the figure's hand shot up, gripping my wrist with unexpected strength. Its head lifted slowly, painfully. Eyes opened. My own. Not figuratively, not metaphorically. The man in the bed was me, a broken version of me, a version who never left this room. His voice rasped through the mask. "I told you,
You weren't ready to wake up. My pulse hammered, the room warped, tilting like a ship on a stormed sea. Memories erupted, unwelcome, violent. The drowning, Marco's scream, my hand reaching, then freezing, letting go, running. A head injury, the hospital, Orest whispering, some truths shouldn't return. My other self tightened his grip. You split, detective. You left the part that couldn't face the truth here. And now he's coming to make you whole. A sound echoed from the stairwell.
Slow footsteps again, descending. He had reached the bottom. The lights flickered, machines screeched, my weaker self convulsed, eyes bulging as shadows poured across the floor toward the bed like spilled ink. Then, with a trembling finger, he pointed behind me. If he touches you, only one of us walks out, and it won't be you. The stairwell door creaked open. Something stepped into the glow. Marco, or the thing wearing Marco, dragged one leg behind him, joints cracking, eyes hollow with river water light. His smile split impossibly wide, stretching nearly to his ears. He whispered, "Ready to remember the rest." I grabbed the nearest object, a heavy metal tray, and raised it like a weapon as the creature advanced, spreading its wooden, dripping arms as though welcoming me into an embrace I would never escape. To be concluded. Marco's twisted silhouette lurched toward me, every step bending his limbs at angles that defied bone and mercy. The room shrank. The machines hissed and sputtered, their sickly green light flickering across his warped marin. Behind me, the weaker version of myself strained against his own failing body. "Don't let him touch you," he rasped again. But his warning already came too late. The creature moved with sudden speed, faster than its broken form had any right to. I swung the metal tray. It struck his shoulder with a hollow clang, wood splintered, skin cracked. But he didn't stop, only laughed, a burbling, drowning sound. His fingers brushed my cheek. Cold lightning shot through me. Images burst behind my eyes, violent, unfiltered, absolute. Marco beneath the water, my hand outstretched, fear choking me harder than the river ever choked him, letting him slip, running, the coma, waking without the pieces of myself that couldn't bear the truth. The creature's voice slid into my ear. "Now we share one memory, partner." He pressed harder. My vision blurred, my legs buckled. But then a hand seized my shoulder. My other self, weak, trembling, had forced himself upright. His eyes burned with a feverish clarity. He feeds on guilt. But it's my guilt, too. And then he did something I never expected. He pulled the creature's face toward him, not me. Marco's imitation stiffened, startled. The light flickered. The machines shrieked. My double's voice became a ragged growl. "Take it back, all of it, and leave him." The creature convulsed, its mouth stretched wide, too wide, vomiting a torrent of black, viscous shadow that writhed like living tar. The darkness poured into the broken version of me, sinking into his skin, devouring him piece by piece. He didn't scream. He only whispered, "One of us walks out." And then he was gone. The bed collapsed inward, as though something enormous had been sucked into nothingness. Marco's twisted corpse, emptied of whatever had animated it, cracked, sagged, and fell apart like rotten driftwood. One final exhale drifted from it. "Partner." Then silence. The machines powered down one by one. The room dimmed, and I stood alone, lighter, hollow, whole in a way that hurt.
A faint rustle came from the corner. Orest, slumped against the wall, bleeding but alive, met my gaze with haunted eyes. "You survived," he whispered. "I wasn't sure you could." "Neither was I." His trembling hand gestured toward the stairwell. "Go. Your past won't chase you anymore. But your future," he swallowed, "your future will depend on what you do with the truth." I looked back at the bed, at the absence where a broken version of me had vanished, at the darkness that had fed on guilt and memory and fear. Then I turned away. As I climbed the stairs, dawn crept through the shattered windows of the shop, washing the horrors in pale, indifferent light. Dust motes danced where shadows had writhed only moments before. But on the easel, upright once more, stood the fake Rembrandt. The sorrow-eyed man no longer smiled. His expression was calm, resolved, whole, because the face in the painting was mine. And for the first time, I didn't look away.